Because reading is what?
Fundamental.
This is Do You Read BTS? I'm Lisa.
And I'm Dila Zay. Welcome back.
Yay.
This is our second episode, and this week we're talking about a story that we read with Jin.
Yes.
It was interesting. It was a little short, but it was good.
Right, but what I don't understand is why the name of it is Velvet Dungeon.
Yeah! That was I was kind of like, okay. It sounded way kinkier than it was.
Right, it was nothing like it sounded.
Yeah. So like Lisa mentioned, the story is called Velvet Dungeon. It is by Big Brown Bambi Eyes on Wattpad. And so, we're just going to get into the story and tell you how we felt about it.
At the beginning of the story, she is working in her, and she works it's like a band?
Yeah.
Like an orchestra?
Yeah. So the main character, her name is, everybody calls her French, but her name is like Francois or something like that. And she is in a band. They, play music, all that stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, interesting enough, she's in that band with Taeyong.
Right.
That does not play the instrument that he actually really plays.
Right.
Because
it's French horn or something.
Right, it's like the French horn. And I was like, what happened to the saxophone? He can play the saxophone? That's what he really plays.
Right. So they're at this event. It's an event of her friend, right?
Uh-huh. It's an event of her friend, and then after they're done with their job, her friend wants her to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And when she decides to stay, that's when she bumps into Jen.
Right.
A past love.
Right. So she was kind of having anxiety about that because she's like, crap, this is my ex. I don't really want to deal with him. But her friend, whose name is Fifi, she was the one that was like, no, girl, stay, have a good time, have a drink. She set her up, right? Because she was like, have one drink.
Right, because her friend is friends with Jen as well.
Right.
So she knew what was going down.
Right. And so she's like, okay, well, I'll have this one drink. As we all know, that never really happens. Because then she was like, well, why don't you just dance?
Right. And she ended up dancing with Jen. Looking into them beautiful eyes.
Right. Side note, French what is she, black and something?
She's I think her mom's black, but she's French.
Right. She is West Indian and her dad's, I think, French, like you said. So French has green eyes. That's something that they mentioned. I was like, oh, she sounds really pretty.
Yeah, in the book, they never showed a picture in the book of her, but they showed a picture of what her mother would look like, and it was like Angela Bassett.
Yeah.
And it was a perfect picture. I was like, oh, I can see her mama playing. Like, I can see Angela Bassett playing her mama.
Exactly. So she meets up. Side note, so Taeyong he low-key likes her.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's not a lot of play into that.
Yeah, because she don't feel the same way at all. And so they kind of mention it in passing, and then they just kind of left that alone.
Yeah, I kind of wish they would have put more into that. A little love triangle.
Right. That's what I thought it was going to be as I was reading it. And then that just fell off completely. I'm like, oh, okay, well.
Right. This book didn't turn out anything like you and I thought it would.
Exactly. So she's at the party, she drinks, she keeps drinking and drinking and drinking.
And keep drinking. Didn't she end up with Jen? He took her home?
Yeah, because she was wasted.
Right.
So he takes her home and
they make love.
Yeah, they end up having sex.
And like he was like she was drawn to him. Like she
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, I have to like soon as it happened, like she was like, "Oh, I know I needed this. Like I needed
Yeah.
him in my life." Like,
She flat out was like, this is going down. I don't care what
yeah.
nobody says.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it went down after they kind of came together the next morning. He was telling her, let's just make this thing happen. Why you gotta make it so complicated? She didn't want to make it anything because she was like, oh, it's just too much. And you know who my mom is. And he was like, just because your mom had bad relationships does not mean we're going to have a bad relationship. Let's just like not give it a name and just do this.
Right. So they have pretty much like friends with benefits, even though with your ex, that's kind of like impossible.
That's real hard.
They start this with benefits relationship thing, and it's just kind of stuff keeps happening. Like they're doing stuff which is very relationship vibes. Like
Mm-hmm.
they do a lot of things together that are like, okay, y'all are together.
Right. And he treated her so well.
He
Like he
does.
was like great boyfriend material.
Definitely was. Like
But she was fighting it so bad.
she was fighting a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
she had a lot of issues with her mom in
Right.
the past. She didn't grow up with her father. I don't think she had ever really met her father. She had seen pictures of him though.
Right.
And
Like
so
she
her
knew who
dad,
he was.
right. Her mom was pretty much a hoe, like a paid prostitute.
Yep.
I don't want to say a hoe. Let me take
She
that
was
out.
definitely a hoe.
She was she was a paid prostitute, but like a high class
Yeah, like a
prostitute.
high end.
Yeah, and that's how she met her dad. So she ended up getting pregnant, all that stuff, and then they had French. Well, he bounced because that
He had
he
a
was
hoe.
married. Yeah, he had a whole family, and the mom continued to do her thing, which kind of put French in a weird spot.
Right. But
Um,
he
so
but he knew how she was. Like I felt like he kind of liked her, but he knew he had a family and also he knew like how she got down.
right, and he
Like
wasn't gonna risk any of that to be with her.
right.
This story has some pretty decent smut in it. I'm not even gonna lie.
Some real good smut. You guys have to go read it. Like it's
Yeah, you
really
have to read
good.
it.
It's good detailed smut.
Mm-hmm. They end up going to, after like a time of things, they end up going to meet his parents.
Mm-hmm.
And it's his mom and his dad and his brother who happens to be Namjoon.
Right.
So
That was kind of weird for me.
yeah, it was a little strange.
It was just weird for me because I've read so many like fanfics with them even like them being a couple.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like it was just weird to me for them to be brother and brothers. I don't know.
yeah.
I just read too many fanfics.
Same girl. It's fine. It's fine.
But before that, we need to talk about why she felt that way. Like when she explained to him why, remember he kept asking her why are you acting like this? Why do you keep running? And then she finally broke down all the details of why.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she broke down all those details, and I think the most one that was like affected me was like when she was young, like her mom basically used her. Like she made her learn how to make mixed drinks for her
Mm-hmm.
friends that came over, like little stuff like that. Like she basically just used her. And I think what got to me was the part when she was a little bit older and she was studying and doing things. And then her mom wasn't at home. And then one of her friends came over and was like, where's your mom? And she was like, oh, she's not here or whatever. But he like barged in the house. So she went back to her room, continued to study, and he busted up in the room and like started feeling on her and stuff like that. He was like, you just like your mama, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much like rubbed up on her and jacked off on her.
Yeah.
And
So
then, yeah.
yeah, so she has a really hard time with like getting close to people because she doesn't feel like she deserves it, and she's always constantly worried about the negative. Like she always thinks the negative of every situation.
Right. But I hated her mom for that because when her mom came home and she tried to explain it to her mom was pretty much like, "Oh, well, you earned your keep. Here's $200."
Right. Didn't even like try to console her daughter. She was just like, well, this is the business, hun. It's about
Right,
that time.
right. It's about time you learned.
Yeah, it's so sad that she did that to her, but that happens. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like that happens in real life.
Right. But I think after
Sadly.
she explained that, all that stuff that happened along with that story with Jen start to understand why she was that way towards him because Jen was genuinely really nice to her. He showered her with gifts. Showered her with everything. Like all he wanted to do was to be with her, and she didn't want to do that because she felt like almost
She
like
didn't
what
deserve.
yeah, like tainted.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
And he low key like read her and was like, "Girl, you can't keep doing this to your friends. You can't keep being always wanting to run. Like people genuinely care about you, and you're letting them down. And you're not letting them down, but you're like, keeping them at a distance when all they want to do is just be here to support you. Like you don't have to tackle this on your own. People are there for you. You gotta let them in, pretty
Right.
much."
Right.
So at that point, I'm like, all right, cool. She got it. Everything's good. Like, all right, this is great. Nope.
Yep. Nope.
So they end up discussing having her meet his family, and she's kind of immediately like, no, they're not gonna like me. They're gonna see I'm not worthy enough to be with you. Blah blah blah. And he's like, you didn't even give them a chance. Like,
Yeah, like my parents said
chill
nothing
out.
like you describing them.
Yeah, he's like, they're cool as hell. Like, just chill. It'll be fine.
And they
So
really were really cool.
they were like
They
low
were
key. I'm
really,
like, dang, they was hella cool.
yeah,
I'll kick
like
it with them.
he was like very honest with me. He was like, "Yeah, it's going down," and they was like, "Oh, okay."
All right. They even let them stay in the same room together.
Right, right. Which in Korea that is not happening.
Girl, I was like, okay, they're very open minded.
Right, right.
Everything goes well when they first meet. Everything's cool. I think it was like the first day, right? They ate, they chilled, they talked, and then it's the next day,
It's the
right?
next day, yeah. Because the first
Yeah.
day they went, it was a big party.
Mm-hmm.
And so they enjoyed the party and everything, went to bed, did a lot of good smut that you guys need to read.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next
Mm-hmm.
day when they woke up, they did a lot more smut that you guys should
Mm-hmm.
read. And then that's when the next day that was going down and his mom was making breakfast and all that stuff. And I think that was it Christmas Day then?
I think it was Christmas Day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they went down and they was like eating and all that stuff, and then just talking. And the mom was super cool. And after that, they decided to get dressed, and then weren't they going somewhere?
I thought they were going somewhere, but now that I'm thinking about it, I think they were just going outside to meet them as they came in. Meet the
Yeah,
him and his wife.
the Kings. Yeah, the big scene is when the Kings came and she noticed who the Kings were,
Right. So
which was
Jen's
her.
talking. So
Yeah.
Jen's talking about how they have this family friend that they've known his entire life, and how they're
Mm-hmm.
all super close and all this. And so when they go out to meet them, French sees the guy whose name is Patrick, or they call him Patty.
Mm-hmm.
That it's her dad.
It's her dad. Surprise.
And she immediately is like, oh hell no, we need to go. Like, I can't do this.
Which is what she do best, running away.
Right. She runs away. So instead of telling Jen what really is going on, she makes up this story about how she didn't like how he looked at her because he's a man, and he looked at her like she was a piece of meat and all this other stuff. And he's like, he would never, like, that's a good man, blah 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 blah. And she was immediately in her feelings.
Right, because her problem was that she just wanted to make it seem like she just knew that he would be against her because
Right.
of him.
Yeah, she assumed that Jen would be on her dad, on Patty's side instead of her own. She didn't give him the opportunity at all. So she
Right.
made up this story, and they leave. And so I think it's like the next day or something like that. She's downstairs in the kitchen, and somebody comes in the house, and she thinks it's Jen because he was getting breakfast. And it's not. It's Patty.
Right.
And he's like, you need to leave him alone. You're trash like your mama.
Right.
All this other stuff. Pretty much like, I'm gonna write you this check and you can take it. How much will it cost for you to leave him alone? Because you're not worthy of him.
And he left a blank check.
Left a blank check.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I can't say I would have.
Me neither. A blank check.
A blank check. I'd have been like, well,
I would have cashed that blank check, okay, and then I would have still stayed with him. What could you have
still
done?
stayed with him? Exactly. Thank you for this money, but I love this man. So,
but I'm glad she didn't though, because she did prove a point.
She did, and it would have looked really bad if she took it.
Right.
Considering how, like, the things that he was saying about her.
Uh-huh.
So while Patty's in the house, Jen does eventually come back, and he's like, hey, what are you doing here, guy? And he's like, oh, I just, I was talking to your mom about blah, 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 and I want to hire her for an event or something.
Yeah.
Her and her band. And he's like, oh, okay, it's weird, but all right.
Right.
And then the guy eventually leaves.
But Jen knew something was up.
Like he knew it wasn't just
him
that.
At the end of the conversation of something he said to him. I don't even remember what it was, but he knew something was up.
Yeah, because he could tell by her expression and just the environment, like just the energy in the room. He was like, nah. No.
Right, and she was about to, like, she had made up in her mind, because going back to when they first got home, remember they had that big fight. She didn't want to tell him about him. She just was wanting to break up with him, because in her little head, she just knew that he was not going to be with her. Like, he was going to side with Patty.
Exactly. So she was like trying to come up with this lie about what was going on, and he was like, no, what's really the deal? And she finally tells him that's her dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's trying to process everything, because again, he's known him his entire life. Like, that's like a second dad to him. Right. And he's trying to process everything, and he's like, hey, I gotta go out for a run, like I gotta just think. And he kind of keeps her at the house. Like, he takes her purse, he takes her keys,
her clothes, everything,
keeps her at the house because he wants to talk when he gets back. Well, she's running in her head, and she's like, nope, this isn't going to happen. This isn't about to go down. I'm about to leave up out of here, get my stuff. And she bounces.
Right.
Because in her head, she already knew, like, he's not going to accept me. He gets back, and he's confused, and he doesn't know what's going on.
Right. Oh, she leaves, and she's like, I need to get away. And then she packs her bags and book a flight to Paris.
Yep. She just bounces.
Right, and her cousin lives in Paris.
Mm-hmm. So while all this is going on, her mom had called her to let her know she was coming into town.
Okay, so she gets on the flight, and meanwhile, her mom, she forgot that she told her mom she could stay with her.
Right.
Because her mom is now getting a divorce.
Right. So she's coming back to see her daughter so she can mooch off her daughter like she always has.
Yep.
And so French is in Paris enjoying her, well, not really enjoying, but she's in Paris with her cousin. Jen is running around trying to figure out what the hell is going on and figure out where she is. Because last he saw, she was at the house.
Right. And he had been back to the house and beating on the door and sitting out waiting on her to come and everything, and she never showed.
So he keeps kind of looking out for her, trying to find people who might know where she's at. Calls Tay, and Tay's like, I don't know, bro. And so he goes back to French's house, and her mom's there with her bags waiting outside.
With that fur coat, honey.
With that fur coat. I pictured like Cookie Lions when I was like, that's gonna work. So she with her and her cigarette. I was like,
yes, fucking up her apartment and stuff.
Yeah, I was like, wow. So Jen lets her in because he gets the key from the neighbor and kind of notices that she's being disrespectful to her stuff, but is like, I don't really have time. So he kind of lets her stay
in the guest room.
Yeah, in the guest room and bounces like he's still trying to find her.
Yeah, but in the no, he not. He already he knew where she was, but in the meantime, he found out about Patty by talking to her mom.
Oh, that's right.
And he left and he went to go talk to Patty and confront him Because
Yeah.
all Jen knows is this has been a great man my whole life. He's like my uncle. Like,
Yeah.
all this could not be true.
Yeah. And he
But
finds out what kind of man Patty truly is
right.
when he goes and talks to him. And he brings up the fact that French's mom is in town and he lights up like, oh
Yeah, he
yeah,
like, what is
she
she
here?
real? She here? What? Like, I could get
Right.
in that.
Right.
He
Ready to
didn't care
jump back
nothing.
into it.
Right, didn't care anything about the daughter, nothing about what Jen had. Jen had this whole speech about this girl being his daughter, and he all he cared about is that her mom was in town.
Exactly. He didn't even
He,
try to be like, oh, I know I should have been there for her. Nothing. He was just like, yeah, I mean, she's trash like her mom. So
yeah, pretty much.
terrible.
And so he pretty much realizes who Patty really is, call him everything but a child of God.
Right. He went in.
Right, he did, and then he goes back to French's apartment and see her mom going through her stuff, honey.
Yeah, going through her stuff, pulling out stuff for her own little collection.
Yeah, with
And
the cigarette hanging out her
yeah,
mouth.
and after he done told her that she does not like smoke in the house, she still didn't care. He was
Yeah,
like, cool. He's like, you know what? I got time today. I done cussed out Patty. I'm gonna cuss you out too.
exactly. He did just that, and then kicked her out of her own daughter's apartment.
Yes, was like, you gonna have to go somewhere else, girl.
Yeah, and made her and put her out at a hotel and told the neighbor, you know what? I'm going to keep her kids.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it just in case she tries you.
Yeah, right, right.
So, which, I honestly thought there was going to be more to the story because I thought maybe he was going to tell everybody about what happened with Patty.
Right, it should have been a part two because he never told his mom. Like, which
Yeah.
at the end, he does say that he has to tell his mom and dad and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, because he said, "Oh, this is going to change everybody's life because it's going to affect his family now and
Mm-hmm.
everything." Before that comes around, he goes to find her in Paris,
Mm-hmm. He
and
shows up.
yeah, he shows up and she's sitting up on one of her friends' laps.
Yep, it's like a
That
childhood friend.
which is it's kind of so weird. He's like a distant cousin
Right.
that sleeps with her cousin.
Right. Her cousin is in love with this man who is also their cousin. But
Right.
like a
A
couple of times
distant
removed. I
cousin.
don't know.
Right, right. Like at this point, they wasn't even really cousins.
Right.
But they grew up together because every summer she would go to Paris
Mm-hmm.
with them.
Mm-hmm.
So she knew him. She grew up with him. So she was sitting on his lap, just, joking around. They really close, grew up together, whatever. Jen comes up and sees that and instantly is jealous.
Yep. Instantly, he's like, "Oh, for real? This is what you came out here for?"
Right. And I kind of felt like Jen was going to be like, oh, you really are like your mom. But I'm
I
glad
thought
he
he
wasn't.
was
I'm
too.
glad he did not go that way. But also, that goes along with when we was talking about like the story should have had more.
Yeah. 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 I thought, yeah, he's kind of pissed about it, and she's like, "Hey, let's just talk," and they end up leaving to go to his hotel, right?
Right.
So they go to the hotel and they're talking, which they actually don't talk first.
They don't even talk at all at first. They go straight to the smut, baby.
I was
Like
like,
he,
wait, this is backwards. Y'all need to discuss these things. This is
right.
important.
Y'all still mad at each other. What is going on?
Right. So they get it in.
Mm-hmm.
And then they try to talk, and she explains like it's not how you think, like that he's just a family friend.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually him and my cousin that are together. Like, this is not what you think. And he's like, oh, well, how am I supposed to feel? Because you literally bounced out on me and you didn't say shit. So I feel some
Right.
type of way.
And all she can say is, well, you left me first.
Exactly.
I'm
And
like,
he's like,
girl, you always leave.
petty. It was so petty. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
well, you didn't even give him a chance. You just assumed the worst, which is kind
Right.
of what he said. He's like, you just assumed the worst. You didn't even. I wanted to talk about it, but you needed to understand. Like, this is a guy I've known my entire life, and you're telling me
Mm-hmm.
something that's new. Like, yeah, I needed time to process.
Right. Right.
So
So
they
after
have
they did
that.
all that talking, the book ends with them telling each other they love you, they love each
Yeah.
other, and then they get it in again at the end of
Yeah.
the book.
And that's it.
And that was it.
Yeah. So I was expecting like them to go back to where they were initially, meet up with the family, talk things out, because you don't know what happens. Like you don't know what the mom
you
happened to the
really
mom.
want this story really makes you want more.
It definitely
Like,
left you wanting more.
yeah, like you could have, like you I know in my head, I thought of 1,000 different ways that the story could have went or could have
Same.
added to it and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Like it was a good story, but it did leave you. It left a lot to be desired.
Right.
Because there's just a lot of unanswered things, like what happened with Patty and his family,
Right.
what happened with her mom, what
Mm-hmm.
happened with Jen and his family, what happened between them, did they make it back or did they just stay in Paris? Like,
I know, yeah. What happened with Patty and her mom? Did they get together?
mm-hmm.
What's up? What happened?
Right, like what was like, yeah.
Like it was a lot. Another thing I
Mm-hmm.
really didn't like about this story is that she talked a lot in her head, which I know Delize, you was talking about maybe that's why.
Yeah, because she was dealing with the battles of all of her, struggles internally.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that might be why she wrote it that way, but it wasn't a ton of dialogue between the two of them.
Right.
It made it interesting to read because it was just, there was so much, I felt for her, but I also was pissed because she was so much in her head that she couldn't even see the good in people. But I know how that
Everything
is.
was negative. Everything was negative about every situation she was in. The only reason why it was negative like that is because her mom was so toxic in her life. And her mom made her think that everything was negative too. And even when Jen was having that conversation with the mom, the mom was still negative, and the mom was like, she's just like me, she'll never be with you.
Exactly.
You're just rich. You just one of the rich guys that want to sleep with a good piece,
Yeah.
So
it was sad.
Yeah, it was real sad, but it was funny how Jen was letting her have it, honey.
Man, he was ready. He had time that day, Roy. He went off on Patty. He went off on her. He was like, look, man, anybody else come at me sideways, they get in these heads or these words.
Right. All he wanted to do was love the girl. I mean,
right. He loved the mess out of her.
Mm-hmm. And even when they first got back together, it really don't say why they broke up, did it?
No, I don't remember it saying what caused them to break up initially, but I'm pretty sure it had to do with the fact of the stuff from her past.
Right. She was still running.
Yeah, because it sounded like, remember one of the earlier conversations, he was just like, you kind of just ended it. Like there wasn't really a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, that was our review of that, of Velvet
Dungeon. Had nothing to do with the story.
It was a good read.
Yeah, but when I see in Velvet Dungeon, I'm like, oh, Jen got something in the dungeon. What's going on?
Girl. Between the picture of it and the title, you're just like, oh, this is about to be good.
Man, it was a good picture though. It was a good picture. I'm like, Dad, Jimmy, that look all the time.
Yes, he looked so good.
He looked so good in that picture.
Man, the highlights though, definitely a lot of good smut. Although it's a short story, there's it's entertaining for what it is.
Yeah.
So it's something I think everybody should go read.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, yeah, next week we'll be doing a Yoongi story.
Yeah, I'm so excited for Yoongi. Yoongi has some good stories out here, y'all. Don't be slipping on him.
Yeah, the few that we found so far have been pretty good stories.
Yeah.
But yeah, we will see you guys next week.
Yay. Bye.
Bye.